It's the 30th anniversary of the gallery, and they've chosen about 50 artists to participate.
The New York art world has been around for a long time, and we've had a very active role in the last 30 years, and we've seen so much change.
I first moved to Brooklyn in 1986 and rented a studio sight unseen in Dumbo. And there were no amenities back then. The closest cafe I remember was Junior's up on Flatbush.
In the early 90s, when I first came to New York, artists were still looking for loft spaces, and Lower Manhattan had become way too expensive, where Brooklyn was a viable option.
Williamsburg got to that place where we could insist that Manhattan wasn't the complete scene anymore, that you had to come over and see something that was going on in Brooklyn.
I moved to New York, and I came here because this was the center of the art world, and when I first moved to Brooklyn, I came sort of in kind of one of the first waves that wasn't going to Williamsburg. I mean, I'm in Fort Greene, and shortly after I had a studio that was in sort of on the border between Clinton Hill and Bed-Stuy. It was all fantastic. Now you couldn't pay me to move to Manhattan.
In August of 1981, I answered this obscure ad in the New York Times for the position of starting this brand new art gallery in Brooklyn Borough Hall. And then 3 days later, I ended up finding that it was all mine to do. It was the Rotunda of Borough Hall, so we called it the Rotunda Gallery. And just trying to get through that first year, it was a big job, and I was learning by the seat of my pants. At the same time, anything that happened, I had to do it, from putting labels on announcements to everything. So the first show opened in September, and 6 weeks later I had to have another show in the hopper. So I just started doing a lot of studio visits. I needed to familiarize myself with the Brooklyn arts community to begin to curate exhibitions. I'd take the subway, and I had no idea what I would find when I walked up those steps. It was an incredible adventure.
I think the first studio visit that I had from the Rotunda Gallery was when they had their space in the War Memorial. And I think Jackie Battenfield was also director at that time. And later Elizabeth Ferrer has come over a number of times. There's always been a very nice interchange.
When I realized that it was the 30th anniversary of BRIC's contemporary art program and BRIC Rotunda Gallery, I decided that we should commemorate that fact. We are the oldest continuously operating contemporary art space in the borough, so it seemed very fitting that we take a look back. And we actually started by making a list of every artist who had ever shown here. And it turned out that it's about 1,500 artists.
In a variety of ways, BRIC not only presents contemporary art, but provides platforms for emerging artists and opportunities for the public to have a real interactive dialogue with our exhibitions. One of the initiatives we're really proud of is our artist registry.
I put some work in their registry, and it was great as a result of that. They asked me to do a studio visit, and I'd been in a show there in 2008, so I was happy that they wanted to consider me part of the history of the space and invite me to be in the 30th anniversary. This piece is called Big Bang, and it's a reenactment of the birth, life, and death of the universe with beer bottles. I flipped the video camera upside down and sort of at this oblique angle to the street, so it almost looked like you could be looking up at the sky. And then I reenacted the Big Bang by smashing beer bottles onto the street and then sweeping it up.
I knew the gallery intimately, having shown there as a very young artist when Jackie Battenfield was the first director. I started on the Rotunda Friends Committee, which Marianne was the chair of the board at that time.
In '89, I went to a cocktail party, and they had a model of what was to become the Rotunda Gallery here. and they were looking for community support because contemporary art was a little bit not in Brooklyn Heights at the time, not at all. And so we developed the Friends Committee for Rotunda Gallery. Some had a real background knowledge of art. Some were artists like Leslie Alexander, and others were people who were just interested in the community and interested in art. Then Lizanne and I went on the board of BRIC about the same time, and we've been working with it ever since.
We were looking to have a site-specific installation as part of this exhibition, and Jackie Chang's installation will be on the storefront of BRIC Rotunda Gallery.
The piece will be a window adhesive, and it plays with the word object. It's very much about art and how we see art. I showed in 1993, and over the last 15 years I've only made work that was visible to the general public outside of a gallery space. So for me, this show is really kind of a coming home.
You know, I work in a lot of different media. In this show I have photography, but I don't think there's any one medium that's best for any one idea. This image is an image called Eric. 1983 to 1986, I was hanging out on the dance floors of the hardcore punk rock scene in Chicago, and I was interested in my friends that were on the dance floor. And so this work was sort of capturing kind of the energy of a time when people felt very, on the edge. You know, the edginess that gave rise to the East Village scene, that sort of life a little bit on the edge of existence, but still having time to make the art and to be part of a vibrant scene of people doing that, that is really critical. I mean, I live in Brooklyn. I can actually walk here, and then you see a lot of friends because, Brooklyn has kind of the highest concentration of artists anywhere in the country. And so showing here is important to promote the history of an important space in Brooklyn, and I think in the art scene in America overall.
I've shown at the Rotunda numerous times over the past 20-some years, and it really is a place that has brought the arts community of Brooklyn together. Let's see, this is the one that's going to be in the show at the Rotunda Gallery. I invented the 3 lost notebooks of Charles Darwin. And for each of those themes that the notebooks addressed, I made 3 of these magic lantern sculptures. So each one has a video player in them. This is the mineral one, and the one that's in the exhibition at the Rotunda is the dreams of the plants.
I've lived or had the better part of my art career in Brooklyn, and so I've been familiar with Rotunda and BRIC for quite a while, and it's kind of a community center for us. In this show, I've been invited to show a piece called the Williamsburg Timeline Drawing, and it's kind of a chronology of the Williamsburg art scene. But this was done by interviewing everyone that was around. And what it is really is just a kind of a locating in time of when people came, where they came from, when they moved in, where their studios were, what shows happened, various events, starting with the very late 70s when the earliest person who called themselves an artist that I could actually interview got their loft.
So opening night is always exciting, but I think that this one will be especially important for all of us because the staff has worked really for months and months. And it means a lot to me because I have been so devoted to helping the careers of younger artists. And I think that this show reflects the way that this space has done that for 30 years. It really has been a platform for younger artists in the borough.
We've had really wonderful, talented people helping to run the contemporary art program and BRIC itself. And I think we've had a lot of people believing in the work we do.
It's a community of intention, of inspiration, of encouragement, and just stimulation. And if it wasn't here, it would actually be a big deal, I think. But I do know that we, in the art world, the artists, feel particularly reassured by the fact that this place is here?
It has a lot of meaning to me because I've grown up with this gallery in many ways. To this day, Jackie and I are very close friends. She was one of my early champions, and I'll forever be grateful to her for that.
An opening is a time where we gather together and we celebrate that it's public. This is the public face of being an artist.